Right now for more on this is Democratic Congressman John Garamendi of California. He sits on the very critical House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure as we talk about this. Thanks for being here. I want to quickly play for you. You heard Jeanne Shaheen say, I don't want to put a timeline on this, but we have heard people setting something of timelines and deadlines of when there needs to be some forward motion, and it's getting a little confusing to me. I want to play for you what Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg told Wolf Blitzer yesterday, essentially saying that y'all have all summer to get this done.
It really follows the legislative calendar, right? Even today in the House, they were doing a committee markup on a piece of our transportation policy. I think I've heard Leader Schumer say that July is when they want to take a lot of this up in the Senate. It really has to be this summer.
This summer is long, thankfully. I love summer, but that is not what the Commerce Secretary suggested to me, Congressman, just a few days ago.
Well, we do have.
I'm sorry, Congressman. Listen, let me play Gina Raimondo for you. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Sure. Right.
If this stretches into July, is it gone too far?
Probably. You know, it depends. It's hard to say. It depends where we are. But, you know, he said Memorial Day. They asked for a bit more time. He's giving them a bit more time. I think we want to get something done far sooner than July.
Where are you on this?
We are in process of moving pieces of legislation around. Last night or yesterday, we spent 19 hours marking up the surface transportation bill. Unfortunately, at the end of that entire process, not one Republican voted for it. That's a pretty clear sign of where the Republicans are going. They just simply don't want anything to do with climate change. They don't want to put more than just a few additional dollars into the surface transportation. We also marked up the Clean Water Act. Again, not one Republican voted to upgrade our sanitation systems around the nation. But this is a process. This is step one. The next step will be that legislation will eventually go to the Rules Committee and to the floor, and I would expect that to be done by the end of, certainly by the end of July, maybe early July. Other pieces of legislation are moving around. The Senate voted out $125 billion of new money for a critical piece of the infrastructure. That's the research and the manufacturing technology that we need on that piece of it. That was a bipartisan piece. So the pieces are coming together. We should have most of this on the floor of the House in July, and then the final negotiations in August, early September. I think we're going to be online to get it done. Will there be Republican support? Not at the moment, but we're not
and
more
that's
than
it.
a quarter of the way through.
And that's it. And the details matter because obviously the detail of every bill matters. But what also matters is the broad picture, which is what you just said. You don't have any Republican support right now, and that's in the House where you guys do have the numbers. In the Senate, you can't move on anything unless you've got at least 10 Republican support. And that's what Chris Van Hollen is saying. He said last night, he says his time has already run out for negotiating, and Democrats need to figure out a way to go it alone. Are you in that place as well? Because as you said, you're not winning Republicans over, and bipartisan agreements, bipartisan negotiations have shown no fruit.
Plan A, I just described to you. Plan B is also underway. A new budget is now being written in the House of Representatives. That should be on the floor during the month of June. That then sets the stage for reconciliation. The Republicans are going to have to make a choice. They're either going to seriously negotiate, which they are not now doing in my estimation, or face a reconciliation process. We would much prefer to have Republican votes, but yesterday was very, very disappointing. No, they don't want anything to do with climate change. They don't want anything to do with the electrical grid. They don't want anything to do with moving with enough money to actually build the surface transportation, trains, bridges, highways, and the rest. It was very, very disappointing, but an awful lot of talking points. We spent nearly 2 hours talking about defunding the police. What that has to do with this was beyond anybody's estimation other than the Republicans wanting a talking point.
So just my knowledge of Capitol Hill, your far more extensive knowledge of Capitol Hill, I'm getting the sense that if this stretches into, I mean, if we're still talking infrastructure come August and into September, that's probably not surprising with the process that you're laying out right now.
Well, what we'll be talking about is moving forward to getting the job done. We'll either do it with a piece of legislation through the normal order, and we can do that in the House of Representatives. We do have the 50%, more than 50% vote. We will do that in the House of Representatives. It'll be all that is in the president's plan. It'll have all of the pieces, including broadband. For the life of me, I don't understand why Republicans in the Midwest, in rural areas, don't want broadband. But in any case, we will do that. And then we will also have a plan B. If the Republicans simply refuse to go along in the Senate or somehow stall us in the House, we can do reconciliation. And
now,
we must.
Congressman, I do want to ask you on another topic because it's just happening this morning. Sure. A group of Jewish Democratic members have just put out a letter condemning comments by fellow Democratic member Ilhan Omar. We'll put up what she tweeted because that is at the crux of what I'm talking about. She tweeted the following, that we have seen unthinkable atrocities committed by the U.S., Hamas, Israel, Afghanistan, and the Taliban. And fellow Democrats are now asking for her to clarify for what they call offensive and misguided remarks equating the U.S. and Israel to, well, terrorist organizations. What is your reaction to her words?
I think she needs to be much more careful. I don't think she ever intended to lump the United States and Israel into the same terrorism that was being conducted by those other terrorist organizations. She ought to walk it back. She ought to be very, very careful here. The problem is that this kind of language incites violence here in the United States. We've seen too much of that. The Jewish community has been affected by that. And we need to really tamp this down. We need to be very measured in our conversations here. There's a lot of emotion in play, understandably so. But be very, very careful, all of us, in all that we say.
Yeah, I mean, this gets into that realm of should she or should someone apologize for something. Does that matter to you here? Do you think you would look for an apology for what she said?
The word apology can mean many, many things. It can be, yeah, I'm sorry, or it could be, what I really meant to say is the following. I would hope that she does clarify what was in that tweet. One of the things that I've learned and occasionally forget is be careful with what you email or what you tweet. The E in email is for evidence. So we ought to be very, very careful how we use these platforms, because they can be they can incite trouble. And as we saw with the president, both his rhetoric and his tweets, it can incite violence.
John Garamendi, Congressman, thank you for coming in.